Are you wanting to heal your relationship? Or maybe you're not sure, but you'd like to explore the idea, and that's led you to this podcast. I'm Morgan Robinson, and my husband Brad is an international affair recovery expert. Together, we founded Marriage Solutions, a multi-location group marriage counseling private practice devoted exclusively to helping couples heal and rebuild their relationship to stronger than ever before. In fact, we're the best reviewed couples therapists in the Midwest. Check us out at mymarriagecheckup.com. Welcome to Healing Broken Trust podcast. I'm Morgan Robinson.
And I'm Brad Robinson.
And we are back from our vacation. If you listened to the last podcast, we went to Switzerland. That's right, little Switzerland in North Carolina. And we are so excited to be back with you this week. We're very tired, right, Brad?
Yeah, I'm exhausted right now.
How long of the drive was it?
Well, we ended up going to Ocean City, Maryland. From Ocean City, Maryland back home was 21 hours, broken up into 2 days.
Yeah, and then double that because we'd have to drive from here to there.
Yeah, gosh, it was so long. Just Tennessee, you guys that live in Tennessee, that state is so long. It's like a full day drive just to get through Tennessee. You know, and we've got a little kid, so it takes a lot longer. You can't just get up and go. You got to stop frequently. But we're back, and this is going to be a little shorter, honestly, just because we're tired. And then we're going to get back into the normal swing of things. We're going to get started, and we have a listener question.
That's right. She's asking a question that a lot of people ask.
Hi, this is Bonnie from Virginia. My question is it wrong for me to continue to secretly check up on my husband's behavior via his Facebook page and personal bank accounts, since this is how I recently discovered his affair and other infidelities? Thank you.
To be honest with you, I think the answer is it depends. I think if someone feels the need to keep looking and keep searching, to me that tells me that they don't feel like their heart is truly safe yet with their spouse. And so, again, the answer is it really just depends. There's not a black or white answer to this kind of thing. It's a very individualistic answer because there's a lot of factors that go into play in this. You know, some of the big factors that go into play in this are, you know, how traumatizing was this for the person? Some people, you know, go through this and it's worse than when their child died. Some people wouldn't even put it in that category. But for a lot of folks, it's extremely traumatizing. And the more traumatizing it is, the more questions they're going to have, the more hypervigilant they're going to be, the more they're going to need information, and the more they're going to dig to really just try to put the pieces together. So for an individual who's extremely traumatized by this, it's going to take them more. It's going to be a different healing process. It's going to be similar to other people, but it's going to be different in the sense of they're just going to be more leery of fully trusting. It's like, I have really gotten my trust broken, you know, and maybe other people have broken my trust, but you've really broken it. And so it's scarier to fully trust. But when people are looking for information and looking on Facebook and just kind of double checking, what they're really saying is my heart really safe with you? Can I fully trust you? Is my heart safe? And I think, you know, for the marriage, if that's the goal, you know, to be fully united and restored, because that's really what this podcast is about, is for those couples who say, we want to work on this together. This podcast is called Healing Broken Trust because it's about healing broken trust. It's not about my life after my ex's affair. That's not what this is about. This is about healing broken trust together. And so I think some people think that, you know, we think after every situation of infidelity, somebody's got to stay married. That's not necessarily the case. It's always an individual decision. I think on a general level, people are much happier when they stay together. I think that they can experience post-traumatic growth. And the whole point of this podcast is just to point people on the steps of having that healing journey. So I want to mention that. So back to this question, it's not wrong to want to look and want to get information. It would just tell me that there's probably more healing that needs to take place. And some of the different areas where healing needs to take place, like we've talked about on here, you need to go through bonding events. You need to have these deep, immersive, emotional experiences with each other where you feel totally safe with each other and you feel like a huge weight has been lifted off your chest. And it's something that, we can walk you through in our office. So that tells me that maybe that hasn't taken place. Sometimes people still need to do that after bonding events because part of the healing of trauma is it has to make sense to you. And so, maybe the story doesn't make sense. Maybe they've lied repeatedly. In this example of this woman, it's how she found out. So for her, it's her measure of safety. It tells me that trust isn't fully rebuilt. The other thing I would just add on to that is sometimes using EMDR can help with that because it takes away, we're not in the depths of pain and hurt. It helps heal that hurt so there's not as many lingering questions. And so those are just some ideas with that. But, it's very individual. I think it's wrong for a therapist to say, look, you got to be over this, man. It's been 90 days. You got to be over this. It's been 2 years. It's been 5 years. Therapists can help guide and point in the right direction. But I've heard a lot actually of someone who's been traumatized and they need answers because when they're asking questions, it's about, is my heart safe with you? And it's also about, I have a right to know this. I still am making up my mind if I'm going to be with you or not. And if you don't fully disclose with me what's going on, I don't know if I'm going to stay or not. And if you don't really share this with me, you're kind of denying important information I need to know about the future of my life. And so if you actually paint it prettier than it really was, and that there wasn't sex, and that it only lasted a few weeks instead of a year, or it lasted a year instead of 8 years, if you're painting it in a more rosy and a prettier picture, you're denying me necessary information to have full consent to make up my mind, and this is what I really want to do. So disclosure is really important. And sometimes these little kind of intuitions, these little things, sometimes they point to bigger things because we're not getting the full picture. But when people get the full picture, obviously they don't always enjoy it, they don't like it, but they can heal from it. And as a relationship, if it's to progress and move forward, people have to feel like they're really getting the truth. And without it, they just get stuck. So in summary, Morgan, I wouldn't say it's wrong to look or to look on Facebook or to look at phone records. I think really what that is pointing to is I still need reassurance. I need to know I can trust you. And what that may point to is that there's still not the communication that we need just yet. It may point to unresolved trauma that hasn't been completely healed. I'm a big advocate of doing EMDR because relationships and marriages get better before individuals get better. And so it's always a wise idea to do EMDR. EMDR typically is a very brief type of therapy, maybe 5 or 6 sessions for working through infidelity. Maybe depends on what your EMDR therapist recommends, but it's a brief therapy. And so, things like that can be helpful, but you need to have the one who hurt you, who betrayed you, also be engaged in the process. And if they are getting defensive and shutting down and closing off emotionally, it's going to be a lot harder to be open and for that trust to be really restored and for you as an individual to be able to move past it if you've been the one betrayed. One of the biggest things that those who are involved in an affair struggle with is just feeling like their needs count. They don't feel like, right now is the time, right after an affair is discovered, to be talking about their emotions and feelings and sharing their vulnerable side. They think that they can share remorse and guilt, but they feel intense shame and feelings of unworthiness, and they feel unlovable. So it makes it really hard for them to just be an open book and talk about this, And so I think there's a lot of different factors there. But if somebody's asking questions like that, it typically means there's just unresolved work there that we have as a couple, that we have as an individual. One of the things that we talked about in the 7 stages of healing of affair recovery is, we talked about discovery, we talked about ambiguity, we talked about trauma, we talked about meaning, we talked about post-traumatic growth, forgiveness, negative cycles. Part of healing that trauma, things like EMDR can be helpful, But also part of it is just being able to find meaning and make sense out of this. And, when we're asking questions, it's really, is my heart safe with you? And so talking to your partner about that, is my heart safe with you? I think that can be wise. And that's kind of in essence my thoughts on that.
Thank you for joining us this week. We hope that you enjoyed this podcast. Take care. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Well, have you booked your retreat yet? Make sure to go to healingbrokentrust.com for more information and call 918-281-6060 to book your retreat today. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Healing Broken Trust podcast. As always, this information is for education and entertainment purposes only.